Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton, and we have a really cool episode for you today because we have a returning guest. So today's guest is going to be Josh Dorkin. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Bigger Pockets. So Josh was on our podcast way back about 4.5 years ago. He was episode number 35. You can actually go to still listen to his episode number 35. A lot's changed, obviously, since then. When I interviewed Josh, it was a team of one or two, including himself, and they are now a team of over 25, I believe, based in the Denver area. I'm friends with Josh on Facebook, so I've seen that they've moved into some pretty cool office space. Bigger Pockets is helping people build wealth through real estate. So that could be commercial, that could be residential, that could be home flippers, that could be investors, people buying homes and using it as income. There's a ton of different strategies I'm sure that people employ, and we'll talk about some of those. Company is still bootstrapped. We'll talk about that. And Bigger Pockets has one of the most successful podcasts out there for all of business, kind of all the different industries, but certainly real estate. So I'll ask Josh about that as well. And let's welcome Josh to the show. Josh, how are you, man?
Hey, Noah. Oh, Jesus, Jonah.
Jesus, man.
Wow, what's going on here?
I just gave you that nice intro, and
That
then you
was
insult
great.
me with.
Way to screw the pooch.
That's all right.
My brain is fried, man.
I've heard way worse than Noah, so.
I'm so sorry, man.
I think if my parents could go back, they'd probably actually call me. They'd actually probably name me Noah.
All right.
Noah, Joshua, or Jonah. Those were kind of four Jeremiah.
All right, we're going to improve this show right here. We got this.
Okay. So like I said, you were with us 4.5 years ago. You'd been running Bigger Pockets by yourself for 7 or 8 years up till that point. You guys have now grown a ton in the past 4.5 years. So talk to us. What do you guys do, and what's leading to all this new growth?
Sure. So Bigger Pockets, as you mentioned, is a platform to help people build wealth through real estate investing. So that could mean, somebody who wants to go and flip a house, somebody who's looking to get into buy and hold, somebody who's looking to buy mortgages for income, any of a number of strategies and tactics that people would undertake in the real estate realm. They would come to Bigger Pockets, and we've got this incredible community of hundreds, 760,000 or so people, members. We've just super active forums, thousands of posts every day where people are just helping each other out, connecting, doing business, learning. On the podcast, we've got an extremely popular blog, so we bring in experts in all these various fields who come together and share their stories and share their knowledge to help people become educated in the field of real estate investing. So we've got podcasts, we've got articles, we've got the forums. We've got, the social network. People can send each other messages via the profiles, learn about one another, interact and do business together ultimately. And lastly, we provide tools for people to do things like evaluate deals, market their business. And back to the content, we also have a publishing business that we own where we put out books to help folks find success in real estate and the personal finance world.
You guys also provide deal flow or access to potential deals?
So we're not a crowdfunding platform. So it's not a place where you would go and through Bigger Pockets you can actually throw money down and buy a piece of a deal. That said, we do have a marketplace where folks are sharing opportunities. So yeah, there's deal flow, but it doesn't necessarily happen on site. It happens through the platform, but we're not kind of participating necessarily in what's happening there.
Okay, so if for instance I was looking at investing in a multifamily, a single family house, whatever it might be, I could go to the marketplace and potentially find partners to join me on that project.
Yeah, you can do that. Hey, I've got this multifamily. I'm looking for folks to participate, and here are the details. And again, provided you're not doing a public offering, provided you're not violating any kind of laws, yes, you can go out and solicit or promote your opportunities.
So back when I had you on the guest 4.5 years ago, like I said, you guys were just a small team, one or two people back then, and now you're 10 times larger than that, or somewhere in the mid 20s. So what changed along the way? When did that growth really start to happen, and when did you really have to start to bring on more people?
Sure. So about 4.5 years ago, um, I was running this what had become a lifestyle business. I had started the company about 8 years prior, and initially it was a hobby site. So hobby site eventually becomes this lifestyle business, and ultimately what began to happen was over this period of I'd say year 3 through let's say 8, I was I had outsourced development work, and I was doing everything else. And I'm now working 80 to 100 hours a week, and ultimately realizing that I'm burning out, right? I mean, you can't work 80 to 100 hours a week without burning yourself out. And so I built this lifestyle business. I had no life.
I mean, were you making decent money? I mean, were you making six figures off of it?
I was probably close, but not much more.
Okay.
And so I'd have to look back, but I wasn't getting wealthy. I mean, had my wife. My wife wasn't working, so I was supporting the two of us. And so things were okay, but I was also working two jobs in one, right? So I got to this point where I'm like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. I'm working so hard, really for so little. And so how do I change this? How do I move forward where because frankly, I could have gotten a job making that much money with considerably less stress,
50% less hours.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I realized something was wrong. One day I just broke down to my wife, started crying, and I was like, "What am I doing? This isn't working out." So we hired a consultant to kind of help us look at the business, help us kind of figure out what next steps to do, how to move forward or how to not move forward.
Right. Did you think about shutting it down or even selling it?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. So ended up deciding on a plan to hire an employee and kind of planned out the next few employees, and we planned out this path towards offloading some of the work onto other folks.
Who was the first person you hired? Like, what was their role going to be?
So the first person was going to be community manager and editor of the blog. So They were going to help kind of oversee the day-to-day stuff happening in our forums, and they were going to manage and run this team of writers who were working for us.
Okay, cool. I mean, that was a big decision, right? I mean, you were supporting you and your wife. I mean, you're making decent money, but not making a ton of money to then bring on, I don't want to call it a liability, but bring someone onto payroll that was going to cost you money, essentially paying out of your pocket.
Yep.
When they, there was no guarantee that they were going to bring any extra revenue with them. So
exactly.
I mean, that was a huge risk, but I assume looking back now, it paid off. It was the right decision.
Definitely the right decision. Huge risk, like you said. I mean, imagine. So let's say I'm making right around six figures, and now I've got to hire somebody to come work for me, and I got to pay them a decent salary. Think what happens to what I'm taking home with my wife. So, I mean, this was extremely frightening, and obviously one of the best decisions I ever made. So, hired him. He's the co-host of our show, Brandon Turner.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And he was one of our big success stories. At the time he had built all this wealth thanks to Bigger Pockets, and huge super fan. And he was writing for us, and so it just worked really well to have your first employee be kind of your super fan. Was fantastic, and he's amazing. I mean, still is amazing, and that allowed some of that trust to start to develop that I can now bring on other people. And so, from then him came the next and then the next, and little by little, okay, Brandon's doing, 2 to 5 jobs. I'm doing 17 still. how do I get rid of this one thing that I don't like or I'm not great at? Okay, so let me hire somebody to take that over. And you start kind of chopping up all these job duties and figuring out who needs to do what. And as a bootstrap, I didn't have all this cash where I could just hire 17 people at once. That next employee had to generate enough revenue in order to pay for the following employee, right? And so you couldn't have cash flow negative employees, right? You had to have everybody really had to serve that purpose, and so little by little we just started to grow it. Had developed a really tight, fantastic team. We're starting with new initiatives. We're testing stuff out. We're developing new products and things, and getting better at monetizing, getting better at serving our users and helping them achieve that which they've come to our site to achieve. And at a certain point, the team grew to a point where I realized, okay, I had this great transition from, I'm working 80, 100 hours a week to I'm working 80 to 95 hours a week to I'm working, 75 to 80, and so on and so forth. But we got to a point where now I'm managing, let's say, 7 to 10 people. And suddenly I'm not doing as good a job managing 7 to 10 people. That's a lot of people to manage. There's a lot going on. And so there was another transition where how do we overcome that? How do we start to grow the team to a scale where I'm not necessarily managing everybody? So now we got to bring in managers, and little by little, this organization starts to come together. We start putting in systems and processes, and all the fun stuff that you need to do in order to grow a business. And of course, all the while trying to figure it out and learn it. I mean, there's no handbook. There's lots of books on it, but every company is different. There's lots of ways to skin a cat. So really the last 4 years has been figuring out how to grow this company, figuring out how to build an entity that is going to continue to grow and last for many, many years to come. And trying to build a great culture, something which a few years ago I would have said is BS. Like I didn't understand culture until, let's say 2 to 3 years ago. Having a place that people want to work. And again, at the end of the day, serving our end users and helping people transform their lives through real estate.
How were you guys monetizing, 4.5 years ago when you were a one-person team versus how do you guys monetize today?
So then we were making money through ads on the platform, primarily AdSense. I was doing some direct sales, and we were also
were they good ads? Like back then, were they ads that were related to real estate or investing?
Yeah. And also selling ads in the newsletter. Yeah, absolutely. They were related. I was pretty diligent to not allow irrelevant ads. And so the ads are fine. That was it. That was how I made a living. We had also launched paid accounts, and for us, paid accounts were never about. You would never create a paid account on our site to get access to content. Our content is and will be free. The idea of the paid account was, could we monetize folks by the people who are marketing and soliciting? Let's charge them to market and solicit. And hey, that was kind of the initial purpose of those paid accounts. And frankly, we didn't really do a great job of it. I was doing about 83 other jobs at the time. As we brought people on, we figured out what could we do to better entice people to pay? What can we offer them that they are looking for? So we got better at creating better paid accounts that made more sense for the user. We continue to sell ads, but we've also expanded that out as our newsletter's grown, and as we launched our podcast, we began to generate ad revenue on that. Partnerships with different companies offering products or services that we are not offering ourselves. And then a few years ago, we also launched a publishing business to put out the best in class books on a number of subjects in our niche, also generating revenue.
So talk to us about the podcast. I mean, you guys, like I said, are certainly one of the more successful podcasts out there. You're probably number one in the real estate category. So when did you launch it? What was the mission behind it, and how the hell have you guys grown it so big? I guess having 750,000 members on the platform certainly helps.
Yeah, well, we didn't have 750,000 when we launched it for almost 4.5 years ago. So having a list definitely helps. So we launched it because we had the idea that, first of all, like, the web is not the only place for us to build this business. Bigger Pockets, in my mind, was something that could become an actual brand, not just like a website that random people go to. I wanted to build a name that was synonymous with the industry. I want a place where, frankly, I want Bigger Pockets to be Googled more than real estate investing, real estate investor. How do we do that, right? How do you accomplish that? Well, you can't just be in one place. You've got to be everywhere. So with that, I've got to be everywhere. Now you start to figure out, well, what does that mean? Well, it means you want to be where your potential users are. Well, not everybody goes and browses the web. Most people do, but not everybody. Some people consume information through the radio. Some people read books. Some people watch videos. Some people listen to podcasts, whatever it is. And so we looked at that and we said, oh, well, let's create a strategy where we can put our brand in front of people who, anybody and anywhere doing anything to consume information, we want to be there. And so that was the idea. And so with the podcast, it was like, hey, listen, people love podcasts. Podcasts are cool. Let's try it. So we literally just bought a bunch of crappy mics and sketched out what we thought the show should be, and went out and just started doing it. I mean, really not knowing a lot. I think that's what we call today growth hacking, right? I mean, you're just trying stuff and you're measuring it and you're seeing if it works. And so that's what we did. And we were not, I think where a lot of people fail in that is they'll try stuff and then they'll not measure it. And then they'll use their gut, or, they'll measure it and they'll quit too early. So we went in saying, hey, we're going to put out, let's say 20 to 25 shows. I don't remember the exact number, but we're going to put out 20 to 25 shows, and let's see where it takes us. And people loved it. I mean, people really, really enjoyed the content. People on our initial push was to our own users, so they liked it, and they would spread the word, and started to rank on iTunes and other places, and that brought other users, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. And let's say again, I'm sorry.
How many episodes have you guys done so far?
We have done 200. Oh boy, what are we at? We're at 220. I'm going to look right now, but we're at 228 shows. Awesome. We've done about, let's say, 33 to 35 million total downloads of the show. That's average incredible. About 150,000 listens per show now across.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And what is the content of those shows? I mean, certainly, my podcast, I bring on other guests to talk about their companies. What do you guys bring on experts? Do you guys bring on members to talk about their experience with the Bigger Pockets? I mean, so you guys must be adding a ton of value somehow.
Yeah, it's not about, so we don't bring on members to talk about Bigger Pockets. We'll bring on members to talk about real estate. But the idea of the podcast was, because there were other real estate podcasts when we started, the idea was, let's create a show where anybody, anywhere can listen to somebody talking about their experiences, and let's do it in a relatable way where you can kind of see yourself in their position and learn from them. And so, I can interview you, Jonah. Let's say, you just bought 6 months ago, you bought your first multifamily and, a fourplex, and you've been running it for the last bunch of months, we bring you on after one deal and talk about why you bought it, what was the motivation, what was the process like, what did you go through, the good, the bad, and
right.
We'll talk to guys who've done.
It's very similar to to what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Bring on an entrepreneur, let them talk to us about their journey, the mistakes they made, any advice they might have. I mean, you guys are essentially doing the same thing, just in real estate.
We are, and people love it. I mean, it's there's two hosts, so we like to keep it juvenile, just because that's who we are, and I think that's helped too, just having a show that's not boring.
Not too serious. Right. You got to have some fun with it.
You got to have fun. And I think a lot of podcasters, I mean, I've done a lot of interviews. A lot of podcasters they'll write down 5 questions and they'll stick to their 5 questions and they won't journey. They won't venture. I mean, I know you've heard these before, right? And you're as a guest, you're like, oh, dude, okay, follow up with this. And they don't. And as a listener, you're like, dude, follow up with this. And they don't. And so, we like to say, take both of us, we will take ourselves to our childhood selves and say, imagine you're that curious 3, 4, 5-year-old. Ask every question that comes to your mind. Just dig in, keep going. And it's been great. It's been an awesome journey. And over the last, let's say 6 months, 8 months, we've actually started to bring in other co-hosts, other hosts to give us, Brandon or I a break, to give people an opportunity to get to know some other folks and kind of diversify our brand. And that's been a lot of fun to watch these new people kind of move in and do a really cool job taking over on the shows that, they end up taking over on. But it's been a great journey, and it brings us, builds our brand, builds trust with who we are, brings us users to our website. It brings us, it brings a passionate set of users. There's something about the medium that people really fall in love with. People love podcasts, and it's wild. I mean, I'll walk around random places with my family or alone, and I'll get smacked on the shoulder by people like, "Oh my God, I love what you guys are doing. You changed my life." And, like, "Oh, hi,"
I mean, I love it. I love consuming podcasts rather than reading a book, rather than reading a blog. I just think it's more genuine. It's more personal. I can listen to it on the go when I'm riding my bike or working out in the gym. So it kind of fits my lifestyle. So for anyone that's listening to this show that may be a founder, maybe not, maybe looking to start a podcast, what advice do you guys have for them? I mean, certainly, like we said, you guys already have a huge platform, a huge member base that you're able to draw from. But if someone doesn't have that, any advice on kind of how to grow an audience from scratch?
Sure. Well, if you decide you're going to actually go and do that and you want to test out a podcast, I mean, you first have to look at the landscape, see what else is out there, see if there even is an audience for whatever it is that you're talking about. If you manufacture widgets and you're the one of 2 companies that manufactures widgets, what are you going to talk about? How you manufacture widgets? There's 6 people who are going to listen to your show. So,
and sadly, there are people that do podcasting that probably only have 6 listens per show, and they just keep doing it because they love talking about it.
Right, which I think is fair, and accepting that is the fact is fine, as long as you recognize that if there's a total market of 6, you're not going to get 8, then cool, go with it, right? But so I figure out what the market is. Look at the landscape. I'm sure in pretty much every niche, there is a show at this point. See what they're doing. What do you like? What do you not like? How are they tackling the topic? What guests are they getting? You'll find in a lot of niches that it's the same people over and over and over again. So let's say personal finance. A lot of personal finance shows have the same, let's say, 43 guests who show up, and they've done the same interview on every show. So, can you find other guests? Can you be more creative in that? What kind of questions can you ask that other people would have not already asked? How can you be a little less traditional? How can you I would call it the Oprah effect, right? How can you make somebody cry? And crying doesn't necessarily mean crying. Crying means like, how do you get somebody to open up and reveal something, get the scoop, right? How do you get them to reveal something to you that they may not have revealed to somebody else? That's going to make it special. And then, a lot of topics are boring, right? So how do you take a boring topic and make it interesting? That's an art. That's not a science.
That's hard. That's hard. Not everyone has that skill.
Right. And you may not have it, right? So, hey, you think your business should have a show and and you're not the guy, it's or gal, it's great. Go find somebody else to do your show for you.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have overcome over the last 4.5 years? I mean,
in terms of the podcast, or in terms of just everything?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so back to the company now. I mean, just in terms of scaling, I mean, you talked about culture, talked about managing people. I mean, you guys are in the Denver area, like I said in the intro. Have you been able to find the right type of talent in Denver?
Oh, I mean, innumerable amounts of challenges. I mean, today, I think we've hired 13 people in the last year. The last 5 or 6, I believe 4 were from out of town.
Okay.
We're at 2.3% unemployment here in Denver, which they say has been
crazy low.
It's been hit 4 times in history in any state, recorded history. And so they actually say it's exceptionally unhealthy because you go out to a restaurant, you might be serving yourself. Is really what they talk about. But yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard to find talent in a competitive marketplace like that. And so, that's where thinking about things like culture, how do you create an environment that people want to be at? How do you create a place that makes people happy? This is their second home, right? So how do you build an office, both space and community environment where people want to be together, want to interact, want to work, are motivated and excited to come in every day? That's a challenge. And I don't think there's a formula for that. That's, there's a lot of jiggering and rejiggering and kind of figuring that out, studying the market, studying what people want, asking a lot of questions. So that was definitely a challenge. Going from solo operator to building out a kind of a management team of VPs was a challenge. How do you do it? How do you, as somebody who's held the reins of everything and where every decision flowed through you, how do you hand that over to other people and trust that they're actually going to do a good job? Benefits. What benefits do you offer, and how far do you go on that? I mean, Denver's crazy. I mean, we're competing against the Googles and the Ubers and these other companies that have bottomless pockets. And so, how far do you want to chase those guys? As a bootstrap, how far do I want to chase the other funded companies in town who, are the VCs and the guys running the show are more than happy to say, let's build a kitchen with a custom chef in your office to attract and recruit more people. Where's the line? And those are always really difficult decisions, I think. For us, the line was, hell no, we're not going to have a freaking personal chef in the office. And if that means we're going to lose some people, it means we're going to lose some people. I mean, you have to have a line, otherwise, you're going to do what everyone else does, which is chase one another to the bottom, because you can't compete with Google and Amazon. Nobody can. Facebook. I mean,
back to something you said about hiring managers. I mean, when it comes to finding the right manager for your company, would you rather promote from within or hire externally?
So far, we've only promoted from within.
Okay.
I have no experience hiring externally. I like the idea of promoting from within because it's somebody who's got roots and somebody who has some underlying talent. But who knows? I mean, look, my management team is fantastic. These guys are great. But they're not necessarily folks who've been lifetime managers or managers for the past 20, 30 years. And so, we've all been kind of learning that trade together, and we take it very seriously. And these guys are, like I said, they're fantastic. And At this point, I think it would be very difficult to trade any of them for, let's say, a hired replacement, a hired gun who's been doing it for 25 years, because they bring so many other things to the table.
Now, you mentioned something, some of the other companies in town that are venture funded, competing for talent. You've stayed away from raising outside capital. I mean, do you have any regrets on that, or are you glad that you guys have maintained that bootstrap status?
Regret is probably a bad word to use. I've definitively perseverated over the years on whether or not that's the right decision. I mean, there were periods where I was actively, hey, let me go and do this. I wasn't trying very hard, but it's like, yeah, let me do this. I mean, years and years ago, over the past few years, the attitude's been, well, if somebody who could provide tremendous value to us were to come up and say, Josh, we love what you're doing. We'd love to get behind it. We'd love to give you some money. Here's what we're going to bring to the table on top of the money, because I don't want money for the sake of money. It's, at least in my head, it would be, hey, I would want somebody who could bring some strategic advantage that we're not currently getting. Thus far, that opportunity has not necessarily come. We certainly get approached by VCs and money folks constantly, but it's nice to know that we can kind of dictate our own path without having, and as an entrepreneur, I don't have to answer to my boss, right? I mean, a VC or angel. I mean, if you take on somebody else's money, you work for them. Your obligation shifts from serving your customers to serving those people. And that's not what I necessarily want to be doing right now.
Right. Same here. What has led to such a low unemployment rate in Denver? What are these factors that are driving it down so low?
Lots and lots of weed.
Seriously?
Legal marijuana has definitely been a boon for Denver.
What is it? Are there just a lot of grow farms around?
Oh, everything. I mean, Denver has become the hub of innovation for the marijuana industry, and it's going to be a model for the rest of the country as other states begin to legalize. It's fascinating how sophisticated the industry has become. I don't know. I know enough.
Whoop! I just lost you for a second. Josh, you there? Josh? The audio's cutting out. Oh, you're gone. Whoops. Okay. Well, we lost Josh. I'm guessing he'll probably come back in a second. So hang in there. We're getting ready to wrap up the podcast in a couple minutes anyways, but I obviously want to do it a little bit better than this. I'm just going to sit here and play on Instagram until he's come back. Okay, you're back. What was that about?
I don't know. I think my Wi-Fi, and I'm wired, so I don't know. Something happened to the internet here.
Okay. Forget what was the question. Okay, so we were talking about the marijuana industry out there.
Yes. So, marijuana industry, I think definitively has been one of the biggest factors behind attracting people. Beyond that, I mean, Denver is just, it's a beautiful place to be. You've got access to the mountains. over the past bunch of years, I mean, it was a relatively inexpensive place with lots of culture, great sporting teams, the arts, you name it. The parks are incredible. It's a fantastic lifestyle. And so I think what's been happening is over the years, people are coming to hear about it. It's not just this backwater city anymore. And, if you're living in LA where it's crowded and, housing is expensive, or San Francisco or some of these other markets, you're saying, hey, where else can I go where I can get the same sophistication? And so, that's helped. There's a definitive tech hub here. I would say guys like Brad Feld and David Cohn and lots of others have put a ton of time and energy into trying to build this as a tech hub.
I remember like 5 or 6 years ago, listening to an interview with Brad Feld, who's the founder of Foundry Group, thinking, why the hell would you be building a VC firm in Boulder, Colorado? And now it's like, Boulder and Denver have become one of the top startup locations out there, or destinations.
Yeah, those guys had a lot of insight. They were very smart. And now, I mean, like I said before, everybody's here. I mean, all the big technology companies, not all of them, but, a lot of them are here. There's a lot of engineering talent. There's a lot of young, smart people who've been moving in. Big millennial city. And so,
is there supply of residential living out there? Can it keep up with the inflow of people?
It's astonishing to see how the city has grown. I came across a website that tracks like cranes, and it talks about cranes per what city has the most cranes, and I think Denver's top 5 or even higher than that. There's a part of town called Cherry Creek. It's this business district. They have 6 of these monster cranes in probably a 3/4 of a mile by quarter mile wide area. Then downtown there's a ton more. It's there's renovation, rehab going everywhere. They're redoing. They're building this new World Trade Center in an area pretty close to where we're located. There's just an inordinate amount of money coming into this place because people are really starting to see it. So it's fascinating. I mean, there's this just massive momentum that's here, and I try to figure all this out. I mean, I'm asking the same question that you are, and what
you're in the real estate business.
Yeah, it's momentum. I mean, I was at a fundraiser last night honoring John Elway, and the governor and the mayor were there, and a bunch of other dignitaries, and a lot of them at least had mentioned he kind of began the birth of Denver, so to speak. The beginnings of the current Denver. Both by getting people excited about Denver as a city because of hey, it's not just this backwater city. They've got a winning team, right? They won a Super Bowl, yay! And so I think that was kind of the beginning of people on the coast and elsewhere starting to think about it. And again, little by little, that momentum starts to come. Industry starts to come in. Jobs come. The environment is fantastic. It's one of the best climates in the country. We have 300 days of sunshine is what we always brag.
Really? Damn, I'm in the wrong place.
Oh yeah, it's more mild than the East Coast, and
wow.
You're in Boston, right? Our winters are warmer and less severe. Our summers are probably close on temperature, but there's no humidity, so it's comfortable. You get some spring storms with some hail and things like that, but beyond that, you don't have to worry about hurricanes. Like there's occasionally a tornado that goes around the countryside. Maybe once in a blue, it'll come near the city, but it's great, man. It's great.
Yeah, I have 3 friends that have relocated to Denver, and each of them didn't plan on staying very long, but they're all still there because they love it. So Cool city. Yep. I know it's getting a little bit more pricey downtown now than it was just a few years ago, but
it's out of control.
Most cities are probably like that. Yeah, I mean
it's been one of the fastest growing from population. It's been one of the fastest growing Price appreciation's been one of the highest. It's been a really crazy market, and obviously problems come with that. So becomes unaffordable for a lot of people. Housing prices are just through the roof.
Where do most of your employees live? Are they downtown or are they in the suburbs?
They're downtown. Most of my people tend to be younger, 20s and 30s. I'm one of the old folks here.
And even in their early 20s or mid 20s, they can still find affordable places downtown.
I think some of them are being creative, and getting roommates and things like that.
Right.
What's the most exciting for me is seeing some of my employees undergo some of the tactics that we teach on the site. We talk about something called house hacking, which is instead of throwing money away renting, you buy a small multifamily property, say a 2, 3, or 4 family building. You can do that using a traditional low money down FHA loan, 3.5% down, and then
rent out the other bedrooms, right?
You rent out the other bedrooms, or you get roommates, exactly. And so you can actually offset your costs, or at least dramatically drop what you're paying. Now, obviously, you have to come up with the down payment, but there's creative ways to do that. Whether it's talk to a parent or save up. I mean, there's lots of ways to skin a cat. So that's exciting, watching that and seeing these guys start to, a lot of our people beginning to do things like that.
Cool. So back to Bigger Pockets. I guess wrap up here. I know you're a busy guy. You got a company to run. Any closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you wanted to mention to our listeners?
Your audience is folks looking to start up a company or kind of build out and grow their business, right? So, I think one of the things that I've become a little more passionate about is talking about direction. Where we are in a world of technology where those that raise a lot of money are rewarded with fame and fortune. And those that build these massive companies, obviously, we put them all on a pedestal. The problem is, they're called unicorns for a reason, right? I mean, the odds of you building $1 billion business are very, very slim. And yet, everybody who wants to start a business thinks that they're going to do it. And so I really like to tell people that it's important to just be realistic and kind of figure out what makes sense and figure out what are you really trying to do. Because, hey, if you just want to make, there's nothing wrong with having a company that makes a couple $100,000 a year that you don't really spend a lot of time on. There's nothing wrong with building a company that makes 10, 20, 50, $100 million. But what do you want? Where's your effort? What is your goal? Where are you trying to take it? And what's realistic? Because we got to stop putting the idea in people's heads that, the only way to be successful is to have $1 billion company. You can have $1 million company and be exceptionally successful and live a very, very good life. So, finding that, figuring that out and being comfortable with it, I think is the biggest challenge that most entrepreneurs face. And I think it's the one thing, at least in the years that I've been talking to other entrepreneurs, that they don't really think about. They just say, oh, I got to go. And they never stop to kind of slow down and think about what's their ultimate objective.
The last question, and it's kind of a two-parter here. So over the last 4.5 years, since you guys, that growth trajectory, Jesus, I get that word.
Trajectory. Who's on first?
Since it really took off for you, what would you say is the best decision that you've made and then the worst decision?
I think the best was hiring that first employee.
Okay.
It allowed me to, go from, like I said, working the 80 to 100 hours to actually starting to kind of get experts in various areas to undertake tasks. Because, frankly, I was not, when you do 3 jobs, 5 jobs, 10 jobs, you never do that one job the justice that you could be doing if that's the only thing you focused on. And to that, I always recommend people read the book, The One Thing. which I think is probably one of the most powerful business books there is. In terms of the worst decision I ever made, that's a tough one. I think, okay, the worst decision.
Even rephrase, I mean, what advice would you go back and give yourself 4.5 years ago?
On this one, I'd probably take it back all the way. I think the worst decision I ever made was when I worked 80 to 100 hours a week. And I didn't take a day off for over 7 years.
That's
so I worked 365. Terrible. It's it's
very unhealthy.
Horribly unhealthy. And at the time I was so in the business and so I don't know, almost manic about needing to constantly, not being able to step back for just even a second. So that was the worst. It wasn't any one decision. It was a number of decisions, or at least an absence of decision. The worst thing that I probably did, and so I would tell people, you got to find a way to get a respite. If you're creating a company, you're creating it for a reason. We don't create companies just so we can become, stricken by these businesses, where we're completely tied to them every second of the day. I mean, it's just not okay, and it's not healthy. You create a company so that you can kind of build a life, and you can have a way to, live and do the things that you want to do. And if all you do is work, you're not getting to experience life. So don't forget to experience life.
Well, thank you so much, man, for being a guest again. I'm happy for you, to see all this success over the last 4 or 5 years is exciting. Back when I interviewed you, I knew you guys were doing some cool stuff, but it's nice to see that it all played out this way. So kudos to you and kudos to the team. Wish you the best moving forward. And, I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thanks, man. Jonah, right? Is that who I'm talking to? Thank you, Jonah.
You got it, man. Jonah. Noah's not that bad. I don't know any Noahs, but Noah's not bad.
I think I was going to email him Noah, and I was just thinking about it. So anyway, yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully people.
You're very welcome, man. Talk to you soon, Josh.
Take care.
Okay, see you later.